Good morning. This is Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center with your 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time update on Hurricane Irma. Irma right now is located along the north coast of Cuba, currently centered about 175 miles southeast of Key West, Florida, moving toward the west at 9 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds are, 125 miles per hour. Irma is a very dangerous hurricane. We're still expecting a north-northwestward turn later today that's going to bring the center of Irma through the Florida Keys, or through the Straits of Florida and through the Florida Keys overnight tonight and early Sunday, and then up near or just offshore of the west coast of Florida on Sunday into Sunday night and early Monday. It's a very dangerous situation that's developing for the Florida Keys and the Florida West Coast. It could see the core of a major hurricane as we expect Irma to strengthen over the warm waters of the Florida Straits and off the west coast of Florida. We have hurricane warnings in effect for much of the Gulf Coast of Florida and for the entire east coast of Florida, including the Florida Keys and Lake Okeechobee. We're very concerned about storm surge. There's a potential for a catastrophic, life-threatening storm surge on the southwest coast of Florida. From Cape Sable to Captiva, we could see 10 to 15 feet of storm surge inundation. That's flooding above ground level. That's certainly enough to drown somebody, enough to put water in the first floor of your home. If you live in this storm surge warning area that's shown in pink on this map and you've been asked to evacuate, please do so. We're expecting significant storm surge all along the west coast of Florida, from the Cape Sable area all the way up into the Tampa Bay region, where we could see 5 to 8 feet of inundation. That's affecting millions of people potentially along the west coast of Florida with this dangerous hazard. Irma is going to produce heavy rainfall across much of the Florida Peninsula, 15 to maybe as high as 20 inches, extending all the way up into portions of southeastern Georgia. Hurricane watches have now been issued along the Georgia and South Carolina coast, and with a hurricane watch extended westward and a tropical storm watch now along the Florida Panhandle. So Irma's effects are going to extend up into North Florida as we get into Monday, and then into the southeastern United States on Tuesday. And Irma is going to continue to be a heavy rain threat into the Tennessee Valley and the southern Appalachians into the middle of next week. But the immediate concern right now is for anyone in the Florida Keys, Southwest Florida. If you've been asked to evacuate, please do so immediately. You do not have much time left before conditions begin to deteriorate, and your life may be at risk if you're in a storm surge zone and you do not evacuate. This is Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center with your 11 a.m. update on Irma.
Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, and thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida, live to be exact. And today's date is Saturday, September 9th, 2017. It is serious what is occurring with Irma. It has been hammering these islands, including Cuba, and it's going on a westward direction and hit a west-northwest turn at a certain time. And of course, he did talk about the Florida Straits. The water's warm, so it may re-strengthening. This is something you don't play with. And one thing I've been keeping tabs on the storm surge and all that. Anyone that's living off that coastline right now, especially in the Gulf regions of the state, get out of there immediately. Your life is too precious. Have to value it. Plus, I'm going to read some more here on some of the coordinates. He gave you the basic information, which is great. And I'm definitely going to put that on there. And even the public advisory, what's been happening is from the latest, number 42 to be exact. And it talks about, of course, 22.8 north, 79.8 west, about 90 miles, 145 kilometers southeast of Veradero, Cuba, or 175 miles or 285 kilometers southeast of Key West, Florida. Maximum sustained winds 25 miles an hour, 205 kilometers an hour. Present movement west or 280 degrees at 9 miles an hour or 15 kilometers an hour. Minimum central pressure is 941 millibars, 27.79 inches. So when it hits the waters again at the Florida Straits, it may strengthen. So folks better be aware. And of course, storm surge has extended from Chattahoochee to the Suwannee River. Storm surge watch has been extended from north of the Suwannee River to Ocracoke River, and from the Volusia, and from north of the Volusia-Brevard County line, north of Isles of Palm, South Carolina. So folks out there in that region, pay attention. Hurricane warning for the east coast of the United States has been extended northward to the Ferdinand Beach, and the hurricane watch has been extended from north of Ferdinand Beach to Estero Beach. Hurricane warning for the Gulf of Mexico coast has been extended to the Oskaloosa River. Hurricane watches now affect from west of the Oskaloosa River to Indian Pass. And to tell you about tropical storm watch, it extends from north to Estero Beach to South Santee River, and more tropical storm has been issued. Watch has been issued of Indian Pass to Oskaloosa Walton County line. That's northern Florida, which is south of Alabama. Okay, government of Cuba has sent the hurricane warning to the Havana province. So the folks over there, just hopefully the brothers and sisters out there could hunker down. Government of the Bahamas has adjusted the hurricane warning to only include Andros Island, Bimini, and Grand Bahama. And it tells you all about the surge and all this in the 48 hours. Let's check out this discussion in the 48-hour lookout. The eye of Irma was located at the reconnaissance plane, and it did give you the same latitude and longitude. I'll just skip all that. The forecast for the core the core of Irma will continue to move near over the north coast of Cuba later today and will reach the Florida Keys Sunday morning. The hurricane is expected to move along near the southwest coast of Florida Sunday afternoon. Maximum sustained winds are near 125 miles an hour, but that can change. Okay, so like I say, it may accelerate. Let's give you guys a heads up once again. Irma is forecast to strengthen once it moves away from Cuba, and Irma is expected to be a powerful hurricane as it approaches Florida. Hurricane force winds extended outward to 70 miles from the center, and tropical force winds extended outward to 195 miles. So they extended, you could say, 10 miles each side away from the center. So 20 miles, you could say. All right, so right now, this storm, this tropical cyclone, is 390 miles wide, close to 400 miles. That is amazing. And of course, the minimum central pressure reported by an Air Force plane was 941 millibars, 27.79 inches. And on the NOAA podcast talked about the storm surges. All right. And here's some areas: Cape Sable to Capativa, 10 to 15 feet. That's scary stuff, my friends. And it says here, too, storm surge combination of a dangerous storm surge and the tide will cause normally dry areas near the coast to be flooded by rising waters moving inland from the shoreline. The water is expected to reach the following heights above ground if the peak surge occurs at the time of the high tide. And of course here, I already said that. And of course here, Captiva to Anna Maria Island, 6 to 10 feet. And we can go down here, right down here. Of course, the Key West, Car Sounds Bridge through Cape Sable, including the Florida Keys, 5 to 10 feet storm surge. Anna Maria Island to Clearwater Beach, 5 to 8 feet. This including Tampa Bay. All right, 5 to 8 feet. So folks got to pay attention in that area as well. I know I have some friends out there and some family. Whatever you do, don't stay away from the bay. Okay, so North Miami Beach to Car Sound Bridge, including Biscayne Bay, 4 to 6 feet. All right, and of course, we go down here. Isles of Palm, South Carolina, Fernandina Beach, 4 to 6 feet. Clearwater Beach to Ocalayola River, 4 to 6 feet. Fernandina Beach to North Miami Beach, 2 to 4 feet. So This is not something to play around with. And I know I'm repeating myself. And the winds here, said wind conditions are expected to continue within the hurricane warning area along the north coast of Cuba through today. Hurricane conditions are expected in portions of the northwestern Bahamas today and in portions of the Florida Peninsula and the Florida Keys tonight and Sunday. Hurricane and tropical storm conditions are possible within the watch area on Sunday. Rainfall Irma is expected to produce the following rain accumulations through Wednesday. Northern Cuba 10 to 15 inches, isolated 20 inches. Southern Cuba 5 to 10 inches, isolated 15 inches. Western Bahamas 3 to 6 inches, isolated 10 inches. The Florida Keys 10 to 20 inches, isolated 25 inches. The Florida Peninsula and southeast Georgia 8 to 15 inches, isolated to 20 inches. So we may expect some more flooding in the area, all right, especially in the low-lying grounds, okay? So just be prepared for that, my friends, all right? And, of course, eastern Florida Panhandle 3 to 6 inches, isolated 8 inches. Rest of eastern Georgia, western South Carolina, and western North Carolina 4 to 8 inches. Western Georgia and northern Alabama and southern Tennessee 2 to 5 inches. All in this area, this rainfall may cause life-threatening flash floods and in some areas mudslides. Of course, tornadoes. A few tornadoes are possible today and tonight over southern Florida. So pay attention, listen, and feel. Okay? If you hear something continuous spin, a continuous wind, and it sounds, I would say, abnormal, hit the bathrooms or a place that is very secure in your facility, okay? So, of course, talk about the surf as well. It will generate affecting the southeastern Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and the southeast coast of the United States today. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. Please consult products from your local weather office. So next immediate will be 2 o'clock. So I'm definitely going to put that in there. Okay, I'm going to leave that in there. And I'm going to add another one again, hurricanes.gov. And what you can do is actually there's an actual website for the National Hurricane Center. Again, and what it does, it gives you an actual weather.gov. Forgive me on that. And what you can do, find out, you can just hit your zip code, and boom, it'll give you a runaround. What can you expect in your community? Like say 33301 Fort Lauderdale. It'll give you, it's good stuff, especially on local hurricane local statement. And it'll give you the whole information on what to expect in your community. Current watches and warnings. It has all that in there. So please, folks, I recommend you go and keep these sites handy. And if a lot of folks are still talking about gasbuddies.com, I'm going to add that in there as well to my footnotes. So at least for future reference, I know one of my colleagues with her husband and her kids was trying to find gas in Tampa area yesterday. So I sent that to her. So I'm going to add this to the footnotes on gasbuddy.com because this is essential stuff because you never know. And I always believe in keep these apps and information handy. All right, just one of the examples of living in this area. You can't just go around with your hands in your pockets. It's not gonna. You're not going to achieve anything. You got to work as a team. Have families and friends. Even some of your enemies you don't have to be crazy about. You have to give them a hand as well. So this is more positive energy. Cannot let pettiness get to you. I know a lot of folks are concerned, even members of my family as well. And it's just a natural reaction. But the main objective is to stay focused, pay attention, and if you got to go, please, got to evacuate, hopefully have a plan to stay with folks in other areas because this is not going to be pretty. All right, just let you folks know this is not going to be pretty. But we can still survive, okay? All right, I'm just gonna go for a couple of areas today, and I know 9/11 is September 11th, 16th anniversary. September 11th is on a Monday, and you know how I felt about it. Every time I address it, I always say New World Order agenda. So I'm going to be talking about that. And what else is on my mind? I've just been like scrambling, so just bear with me on here. So I'll be I know it's supposed to be something's happening with trying to think here. There's no News Buzz is doing some 9/11 Titan Truth Titans, and unfortunately I'm not gonna attend it. Hopefully News Buzz will actually release it, because I would love to see what they had to address. There's supposed to be some fantastic guests on there, including Cynthia McKinley. Whatever, it's funny, I wasn't crazy about her at first in certain areas. Now she sees the bigger picture, which is great. However, she questioned 9/11 when she was a congresswoman. And you know what? I give her total homage on that. Plus, she even went to Libya when they were being bombarded by NATO and the United States, thanks to the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton. War criminals. I don't know why people don't think they're still so great. The TV shows still praise them. It tells you, proves one thing: corporate television, corporate media, bought, paid for, and they bend over to get respect. All right, so what I'm going to be doing right now is talk about this on a Liberty Edition by Bob Livingston. Came out. I got it today on my email, so I'll take the initiative on putting this out here. So it says here, 9/11 Conspiracy Liberty's Lost Edition. Shortly after 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday, bells will toll for the victim of 9/11, or should I say some of the victims. It's been 16 years since the 21st century's Pearl Harbor, which began the government's all-out assault on the U.S. Constitution, also the perpetual war on terror. It would take continuous tolling of bells in perpetuity to mark all of the victims. Government, the mainstream media, and an American populace blinded by normalcy bias, cognitive dissonance, or false patriotism, whatever you want to call it. The powerful mainstream media propaganda machine considered anyone who questions the official narrative of 9/11 a conspiracy theorist. I don't wear that as a badge of honor. But the official narrative that 19 hijackers funded by Osama bin Laden and armed only with box cutters and a couple of flight lessons commandeered 4 passenger jets and flew them into 3 buildings in the Pennsylvania field, while U.S. air defenses delivered for almost an hour in the case of the Pentagon, is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense and retired Marine Colonel Ronald D. Ray says. That dog doesn't hunt. Examine the meaning of the words conspiracy theory, and you can say the official narrative itself is a conspiracy theory. And Merriam-Webster defines conspiracy theory as a theory that explains an event or set of circumstances as a result of a secret plot by usually powerful conspirators. That was nice. I like that. That's the first time I'm reading this, so. It is not for the official narrative, also known as the 9/11 Commission Report. The Commission Report does not definitively state what transpired that day, but does flesh out the theory that the attacks were carried out by at least 19 conspirators, hijackers, or more if you include bin Laden, the purported financer, and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind, working out in the cave in Afghanistan. This theory is considered the gospel according to George W. Bush, the mainstream media, and even many of those who acknowledge the Bush regime lied America into the Iraq War are unable or unwilling to see that the Bush regime likewise lied us into the entire war on terror. To believe otherwise is to believe in miracles, as David Ray Griffin points out in his book 9/11 10 Years Later. There are too many questions. The answers are given nonsensical, implausible, or impossible. I have laid out many of them in my past articles, like 9/11 questions almost nothing nobody's asking, and these 9/11 questions remained unanswered. You can look this up yourselves, folks. The links here are available on this page. The neocon and military-industrial complex backed Bush regime came into office itching to make a war in the Mideast. The neocon wing of the Republican Party advocate a stronger military and aggressive Israel policy and needed a new Pearl Harbor to bring it about. The military-industrial complex was more than willing to assist. The plan was hitched and put on paper by the Council of Foreign Relations in working a paper called the Project for a New American Century. Acronym is called PNAC. And you know what? If I'm correct, you know who was part of that? Jeb Bush. Joseph Ellis Bush. I will proceed. The main reasons were twofold. Oil corporatists for years have been striving for a stable Afghanistan in order to run a pipeline from the Caspian Sea region across Pakistan and Afghanistan to the Indian Ocean, and justification for a passage of a totalitarian, liberty-stealing legislation that will become known as the USA Patriot Act, the bones of which were assembled by then Senator Joe Biden in the 1990s to help usher in Pappy's Bush New World Order. Joe Biden, he's a bend over Bob and proud. And people don't understand why I'm real critical with these butt wipes, treasonous parasites. And they go, how dare you criticize him? I can criticize whoever I damn well please. All right? As a result of serious wars not related to 9/11, but launched under the guise of the War on Terror and using the imprimatur of the 2001 authorization to use force agreement, have been launched upon the Mideastern, Persian, and North African nations and people. Just as the Project for the New American Century outlined, the entire region is destabilized. Millions of innocent people have been killed, injured, and displaced. And untold trillions of dollars of infrastructure, buildings, and homes have been destroyed. The people have been left homeless, destitute, starving, and diseased. The official story is a lie. Adolf Hitler's axiom. The great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to a great lie than to a small one. Is confirmed. Americans cannot conceive that elites walking halls of power are evil psychopaths unencumbered by normal mores. So that's a great quote. The great masses of people will more easily fall victims to a great lie than to a small one. There's evil, their evil knows no bounds, so they conceive of a heinous plot to bring down at least 3 New York buildings and 1 wing of the Pentagon, to halt investigations into financial crimes and launch a multitude of wars, and the use of fear of terror to steal our liberties. It was also a boon for Larry Silverstein, a friend of Pappy Bush, through the Carlyle Group. The ownership of the World Trade Center had recently passed from the New York Port Authority to Silverstein with a convenient out. A clause in the contract provided Silverstein with billions of dollars and the release from obligation in the event of a terrorist attack. World Trade Center 7, which obviously imploded and as it fell in free fall in its own footprint after suffering only minor fire damage, housed the Security and Exchange Commission. So, we are led to believe World Trade Center 7 was the only skyscraper in history before or since to collapse from fire alone. The collapse, of course, ended any investigations into illegal trading. The explosion at the Pentagon that resulted, we are told, from American Airlines Flight 77 crashing into the building following a remarkable and impossible air maneuver pulled off by a terrorist who couldn't completely pilot a Cessna, conveniently halted an investigation into the appearance of a $2.3 trillion from the Pentagon, as announced by Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld the previous day. It was the least occupied section of the Pentagon and the area the furthest away from Rumsfeld and top Pentagon brass. To believe that skyscrapers designed to withstand multiple crashes by airliners and fires would fall so swiftly and perfectly into their own footprint as a result crash of fire damage requires a suspension of logic and laws of physics, as Jim Hoffman writes. NIST's assertion that the tower's intact structure was unable to stop or even to slow the falling mass is absurd. It requires us to believe that the massive steel frame of the towers provided no more resistance to falling rubble than air. I have to agree. It's a wet dream, my friends. They're giving you a wet dream. If you folks still believe that, you're being duped. And they can do it again and again. You're going to go, yes, big brother, all hail to you, with your arms crossed above your head. The fact is there were explosives, as stated at the Times by witnesses on the ground, including New York City firefighters who heard and saw them. The 9/11 Commission was a setup, as all are government investigative commissions, to whitewash the facts. Bush first attempted to appoint Henry Kissinger to the head of the commission, but he backed out all the requirements to report his lobbying clients and protests by victims' families. When the commission finally got underway, it ignored the often changing timelines given in public interviews by Cheney, Rumsfeld, and others, and the testimony of government whistleblowers, including FBI interpreter Sibel Edmonds. Well, she's a executive producer for newsbuds.com, okay? And we follow each other on Twitter. With evidence of complicity within government, once it was finished, Commission Chairman Thomas Keane and Chairman Lee Hamilton both said they had gotten to the bottom of 9/11 because of stonewalling by the administration and various government agencies involved. A member of the commission, Bob Kerrey, has stated publicly the commission was set up to fail. Left investigated and virtually unreported to this day, was evidence of involvement by Saudi Arabia and Israel. Yeah, but Israel exceptional. Oh, not your anti-Semitic. They're exceptional. You know how that goes, right? I'll continue on here. Meanwhile, our currency and with it our mortality is being destroyed. Paper money fiat, which since 9/11 has been created at a record pace to fund wars and prop up the phony economic recovery and now rebuild cities being decimated by storms, is directly the foundation of the Machiavellian mentality. The Bill of Rights has been eviscerated, sacrificed on the altar of national security with little more than a whimper from the American people. We have entered a post-constitutional America. The Patriot Act so broadly expands the definition of terrorist activity that the First Amendment right of civil disobedience or contrary speech can get people labeled as terrorists, revealing that government has requested information from the records in banks, physicians, and hospitals, or even about searches for specific topics in the library, can get people arrested. As a result of the war on terror, President possesses the legal authority to assassinate American citizens on a whim, a direct violation of the Fifth Amendment and due process. The white paper granted him that legal authority states that attacks will take place anywhere outside the United States, that an informed, high-level official of the U.S. government may determine that the targeted American has been recently involved in activities posing a threat of a violent attack. It was employed by the Obama administration to execute Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen. He was a CIA informant, if I'm correct. Yeah, my News Buzz had an article. I did a show on that as well, if I'm correct. So yeah, check it out. My past archives. Recognizing early on that official narrative may not play well, Bush stated, "Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks on 9/11. Malicious lies that attempt to shift blame from the terrorists themselves away from the guilty." What a good word that from a teleprompter. But that is just what the majority of the public has done. I give them credit for this, man. But I will tell you, I've been saying it for a long time. Since September 14, 2001, I declared 9/11 as a New World Order agenda. I questioned it immediately, and I'm not some know-it-all, and I boldly admit that. But I've taken the initiative on studying these things. When that happened on a horrific day, I was sleeping when all this happened. Got a phone call from my mother, told me what happened. On the phone, she left a message, and I went on the TV. Every news channel, cable channel, had it on. Mind controlled at its finest. And hearing some of the rhetoric, but people were I do remember people talking about hearing bombs and explosions, but that was completely eviscerated. And I got to get a couple books pertaining to this. I'll just put it on there. David Icke, The Biggest Secret, and William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. Just got to do a little skimming and quick examining, just to see if I'm on the right track. And right there, I believe those SOBs were behind it. But in the period of time, they're using police state resolutions, body scanners, national ID cards, etc. And of course, the South Florida connection. I know I'll probably repeat myself, but they're all getting crap faced at this place in Shuckums in Hollywood, Young Circle District of Hollywood. Muhammad Atta was one of them, and a few of his other colleagues, and they were getting totally drunk, and they threw a buck crying on the table. And I'm like, nothing's adding up. So this is why I declare a New World Order agenda 3 days after, September 14th, 2011. So yeah, you can say I've been a 9/11 truther for a very long time. Not wearing a badge of honor or rubbing it in or anything like that, but I'm not the only one that had that mindset. This is a deception that needs to be exposed. But all these lame-ass stream media groups will spread their butt cheeks, whether it's CNN, Fox News, etc. Doesn't matter. They're going to use that whole extreme Islamist terrorist was responsible for 9/11. There's plenty of information out there, my friends. You can look at it and observe responsibly. If you still believe in that official story, you're just totally brain dead. Hate to say it. Dumb, stagnant, and happy. And that's what drives me crazy. However, there are folks are taking the initiative on checking it out themselves. Thanks for everyone sharing their information. You cannot throw it at them, shove it down their throats, and let passion supersede your logic. Always have to be methodical and observant. Use finesse. That's the way to get people thinking. I've done it. I don't use inside job because respectfully it's too vague. However, when I say New World Order agenda, I get people actually comprehending. Period of time, they boom boom, they you know what? Then they come to me, they talk about it. So we gotta keep the pressure on it, my friends. Doesn't matter where you're from, who you're at, even share us with your enemies. Because if they have families, we don't want to see them living in a brave new world as well. So it's a good, Mr. Livingston did a good job, man. I'm very pleased to narrate this. All right. So I'm gonna do one more here, and it will be actually from the Land Destroyer Report, and by Tony Carlucci. From the Philippines to Myanmar, U.S. to fight U.S. Saudi-sponsored terrorism. It came out yesterday. The recent attack on police by Myanmar by terrorists described by Reuters as Muslim insurgents. An ongoing terrorism plague in the Philippines where forces are engaged with militants from the so-called Islamic State. It would appear that terrorism has spread into Southeast Asia with no signs of warning. However, the sudden uptick in violence comes at a time when America's so-called pivot to Asia has ground to complete halt, providing the United States with an all-too-convenient pretext to re-engage and establish itself across the region in much of more insidious manner. U.S. sought presence in Southeast Asia for decades but lacked a pretext until now. The United States has openly conspired to establish and expand a permanent military presence in Southeast Asia as a means to confront, encircle, and contain China for decades. As early as the Vietnam War, with the so-called Pentagon Papers released in 1969, it was revealed the conflict was simply one put greater strategy and aim at containing and controlling China. Three important quotes from these papers reveal this strategy. And there's a link for that too. You can see it for yourselves. It states that first, the February decision to bomb North Vietnam and July approval of Phase 1 deployments make sense only if they support a long-run United States policy to contain China. It also claims China, like Germany in 1917, like Germany in the West and Japan in the East in the late 30s, and the like, the USSR in 1947, looms a major power threatening to undercut of importance and effectiveness in the world, and more remotely but more menacingly to organize all of Asia against us. Finally, it outlines the immense regional theater the U.S. was engaged in against China at the time, stating there are three fronts to a long-run effort to contain China, realizing that the USSR contains China on the north and northwest. A, the Japan-Korea front. B, India-Pakistan front. C, Southeast Asia front. While the U.S. would ultimately lose the Vietnam War and any chances of using the Vietnamese as a proxy force against Beijing, the long war against Beijing will continue elsewhere. So you always got those multiple plans. More recently, American policy think tank, Project for the New Century America, PNAC, in a 2000 paper titled Rebuilding American Defenses, Wood unabashedly declared as its intentions to establish a wider permanent presence in Southeast Asia. The report would state explicitly that it's time to increase the presence of American forces in Southeast Asia. It would elaborate in detail, stating in Southeast Asia, American forces are dispersed to adequately address rising security and requirements. Since it was withdrawal from the Philippines in 1992, the U.S. has not had a significant permanent military presence in Southeast Asia, nor can U.S. forces in Northeast Asia easily operate in or rapidly deploy to the Southeast Asia, and certainly not without placing their commitments to Korea at risk. Except for routine patrols by naval and marine forces, the security of the strategically significant and increasingly tumultuous region has suffered from American neglect. Noting the difficulty of placing U.S. troops where they are not wanted, the PNAC papers notes, this will be a difficult task requiring sensitivity to diverse national sentiments, but it is made all the more compelling by the emergence of new democratic governments in the region. By guaranteeing the security of our current allies and newly democratic nations in Asia, the United States can help assure that the rise of China is a peaceful one, Indeed, in time, American and allied power in the region may provide a spur to the process of democratization of China inside democratization inside China itself. A little tongue-tied there. It should be noted that paper's reference to the emergence of new democratic governments in the region is a reference to clients created by the United States on behalf of its own interests and in no way constitute actual democratic governments, which would otherwise infer they represented the interest of the very people possessing the national sentiments that oppose U.S. presence in the region in the first place. It should also be noted that in 2000, the United States was cultivating a number of such proxy governments across Southeast Asia, including Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy in Myanmar. It looks like a lot of people are a little bit ticked off at her. Thaksin Shinawatra in Thailand and Anwar Ibrahim in Malaysia. Since 2000, all but one of these proxies have been removed from power, with Anwar Ibrahim residing in prison and Thaksin Shinawatra fleeing Thailand to evade a two-year jail term. Only Suu Kyi managed to ascend to power as a result of billions spent by her U.S. and European sponsors via the National Endowment for Democracy and its numerous subsidiaries and affiliates. One of these affiliates, the U.S. Institute of Peace, has openly enumerated on how the U.S. on virtually every imaginable level is now dictating the outcome of Myanmar's development, from directing its political processes to organize its economy. Is also provided technical assistance on counterterrorism. How nice, huh? In the Philippines, attempts by the U.S. to reestablish its military presence and to use the nation in its self-serving elective conflict with Beijing has suffered many setbacks. U.S. to fight U.S. Saudi-sponsored terrorism in Asia, most recently found in its relationship with Melania, unraveling irrevocably in favor of Melania's increasing ties with Beijing. This was until the fortuitous arrival of militants from so-called Islamic State on the nation's shores, overwhelming an entire city in a nation in southern region. In Myanmar, terrorists have likewise suddenly appeared and are operating on unprecedented levels just in time for another push by the United States to establish a permanent military presence in the country to provide technical assistance on counterterrorism. Such terrorists, however, have not simply sprung from oblivion. Such organizations conducting operations on the scale seen in the Philippines, southern Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Myanmar require immense sums of money, organizational capacity, logistical, and political support. And indeed, it is confirmed that not only does such support exist, it flows from very logical and familiar source of the state-sponsored terrorism, America's oldest and closest ally in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. The West Journal, in an article titled Asia's New Insurgency, Burma's Abuse of the Rohingya Muslims Created Violent Backlash, reports in regards to terrorism in Myanmar that emphasis added. Now this immoral policy has created a violent backlash. The world's newest Muslim insurgency pits Saudi-backed Rohingya militants against Burmese security forces. As government troops take revenge on civilians, they risk inspiring more Rohingya to join the fight. The U.S. The Wall Street Journal elaborates, stating, "Call Haraka al-Yaqin, Arabic for the faith movement, the group answers to a committee of Rohingya immigrants in Mecca and a cadre of local commanders with experience fighting as guerrilla oversees its recent campaign, which continued into November with an IED attacks and raids that killed several more security agents, has been endorsed by fatwas from clerics in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, the Emirates, and elsewhere. Rohingyas have never been a radicalized population, ICG notes, and the majority of the community, its elders and its religious leaders have previously eschewed violence as counterproductive. But that is changing fast. Haraka al-Yaqin was established in 2012 after ethnic violence in Rakhine killed more than 200 Rohingyas and is now estimated to have hundreds of trained fighters. Foreign-backed terrorism sponsored by Saudi Arabia and literally directed from within its own border and all too conveniently creates a pretext for U.S. military presence in Myanmar. It otherwise could not justify or any shape or form a way pursued. A similar superhighway of cash and weapons flow from terrorists operating in the Philippines to Raida and its partners in Washington, resulting in a similar opportunity for the U.S. to establish a permanent military presence there in reaction to a crisis of its own intentional engineering. While the U.S. proposes an expansive U.S. military presence across Southeast Asia for counterterrorism assistance, it is clear that it is Washington's own aid and support to Raida that is at the very source of the security crisis, and that simply withdrawing aid and penalizing the state of terrorism is the solution. Yet the United States is not making this most logical of conclusions, nor is taking the most obvious course of action, indicating full complicity with Saudi state-sponsored terrorism and placing responsibility to the death and destruction sown by terrorism across Southeast Asia squarely on Washington. While the U.S. frames its military presence in Southeast Asia a cornerstone of peace and stability, is a fact, a policy representing a symptom of the sort of very real instability the chaos the United States and its self-proclaimed international order represents. It is particularly ironic that not only is increasingly rampant terrorism across Southeast Asia a result of intentional Washington policy, is being used as a pretext for setting the stage greater and potentially more devastating regional conflict with China. So something you have to really look at. And this is why, my friends, bring all our troops home now. Tired of the nonsense. Doesn't make any sense at all. I have a feeling what they'll be using next will be artificial intelligence, will be patrolling, like Terminators and so forth. That's been talked about, and it is coming to light. Automated artillery. And that's one thing none of us don't see. But bring our troops home. Let them handle their own affairs. This is more state-sponsored terrorism. All right? And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or even send something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedom's Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, or Patreon.com/LokiLuck3, which is 3 eyes altogether. If you want to donate money, be a sponsor, that would be great. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or to you encrypted ones, LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. Alright, my friends, I'd like to wish everyone a safe journey for this weekend and this upcoming storm and anything else that's happening around the world. Alright, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.